That's what I'm saying. Mr. Albert, y'all must have done a good job, because
All right,
nobody's
I
here.
think we're rolling now.
Well, I'm waiting for 6 o'clock to get here. My clock says 5:59.
5:59, exact.
So I'm just patiently waiting. 6 o'clock. All right, so at 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call this call meeting of the Edgefield County Council together. This is our budget workshop on March 22nd, 2023. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. We'll open with the invocation led by our clerk, Aretha Eubanks, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please stand.
May we please bow our heads. Father God, who is in heaven, Lord, we come before you, God, first and foremost to say thank you for allowing us to be here this evening, God. I ask right now in the name of Jesus that you will grant us, God, the armor we need as well as the equipment to make the right decisions. Father, grant us wisdom and knowledge and understanding, Lord. But most of all, God, give us peace so that in all decisions that we make, God, allow it to be on one accord according to your will, God. And Lord, when this meeting is over, allow us traveling grace for each and every last one of us to return home with everything decent and in order. I petition you, O God, with this prayer. And in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Let's join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, council, appreciate everybody being here tonight. Let me just kind of lay out for you and anybody who may be watching or listening, and of course, people here. So this is our budget workshop we do every year, once a year. And tonight, to remind you, we won't be voting on anything. No votes will be held tonight. What we're doing is we're discussing the budget, and we'll do this in an orderly fashion so that we can all, discuss it and get all the information we need. A couple of things that I'll start with in my preamble here to make sure we're all on the same page. First, this is a more informal meeting. I want council to ask all the questions, whether it's, during somebody's presentation, after somebody's presentation, whatever it may be. Feel free to ask questions. We will have time because we're going to have the administrator discuss the budget memo with us, and that'll be a chunk of time. And then after that, we're going to listen to comments from the elected officials and department heads who are here. And then after that, council will open it up to any other general discussion we need to have. And then finally, the final piece will go page by page in the budget very briskly because sometimes there's some line item you wanted to talk about or ask about, and so we'll do that just so we all have the same information in case there's something you want to ask. I will say this, keep in mind that this budget is a draft budget still, which is why we're not voting on anything tonight. And the budget comes to us from the Budget and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Mr. Talbert. And that committee he is the chair. I'm on it as the chair of the council. Of course, Taz is the finance director, and of course, the administrator. The four of us make up this, the Budget and Finance Committee. So before I go any further, is there anything you'd like to say about the budget before we get on too far?
I would just like to thank each and every one department head and also the elected officials for being such great assets to us of help getting this budget to where it is today, and especially our county administrator, David. They did a great job, and Taz. My hats is off to you all. Y'all did an outstanding job, and we definitely appreciate that.
Thank you. And I do want to say that while this budget comes recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee, that doesn't mean that we might want to make some changes to it. We don't, you know how it goes. It's after you hear things and hear public comment and all those things. So, but we asked the administrator to bring us a balanced budget every year, and he did. And we're very appreciative of that. And the only other thing I think I'm going to mention now is to remind you that we can recommend changes tonight, but there has to be a consensus. And if there's not a consensus, then we won't ask the administrator to make a change before first reading. Now, that said, when the budget comes up for first, second, and third reading, we can amend it as much as you want to amend it, and we have the votes, you know, if it's a 3-2 or 4-1 or unanimous or whatever for an amendment. But tonight, there is no voting, and if there's not a consensus, then we won't do it. This is still a draft budget. Technically, it's still the administrators, and we're just now giving our input collectively to that. So before I turn it over to the administrator to go through the budget memo, are there any questions or comments on anything I've said? Everybody good? Okay. Hearing none, then Mr. Administrator, I'm going to turn this over to you to go through our discussion of the 23-24 budget, please.
Thank you. Over the past 2 years, the county has experienced strong residential growth. While this has resulted in additional revenues for the county, with growth comes increased needs for services. With this budget, the county will meet the ongoing needs of the citizens while ensuring fiscal stability. The Edgefield County employees are our most important asset. Last year, we gave them a 5% increase. We have included a 3% minimum increase in this year's budget and a 2.5% step increase for employees under the midpoint of their pay grade. Unemployment is low and competition for qualified employees is high. Our employees are a major focus of the budget. An additional priority is public safety and quality of life. We are proposing to fund additional employees in the sheriff's office, including our new animal care and control facility, emergency medical services, and litter control. Based on the audited reserves as of June 30th, 2022, the general fund has a fund balance of $6,244,139. In fiscal year 23-24, council designated $1,082,342 from the fund balance. Our general fund operating budget for this year without American Rescue Plan funds is $14,028,252. After using the $1,082,382 from our reserves, the county will have $5,161,797. This is just over 4.4 months of reserves available. This is a good cushion for the county. The major highlights in this year's budget, and as I get to the bottom of this, I'll ask if there's any questions, because this includes employee compensation. There are no fee or tax increases proposed. There's a 3% cost of living increase. The proposed cost of living increase will be applied to individual salaries and the salary pay bands. This is just as the mid-year increase was. It moves the Archer hiring band and midpoint of the band with the increase. There's the implementation of a 2.5% 8-year step program. The difference between the minimum salary band of a grade and the midpoint for all grades is 20%. By giving a 2.5% increase, which is calculated on the minimum point of an employee's salary band, each year over 8 years, an employee hired at the minimum would reach the midpoint in 8 years. This is separate from cost of living increases, which move the bands themselves. Step increases would cease once the employee reaches the midpoint of the pay band. We propose coverage of the individual health insurance premiums for employees. This is between $1,100 and $1,200 per year. This would take approximately $102,000 from the general fund and $35,000 from special revenue funds. The addition of 4 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees in the general fund and 2 full-time employees in the EMS special revenue fund. We propose using $250,000 from the 2020 vehicle bond to offset the Sheriff's Office vehicle leases. Use of American Rescue Plan funds included within this budget are $140,000. That amount was unused from the previous year for hometown grants, $45,000 for retail strategies and economic development, and several small equipment items totaling $15,000. I believe 10 of that is for rec and 5 from the building department. Do I have any questions on the pay increases or employee benefits?
So just for clarification, so a couple of examples. So if an employee is not near their midpoint, they're going to get a 3% pay increase over like everybody gets, and they'll get the 2.5% increase.
That is correct. The 3% would be calculated. It would move their bands and move them within their bands, 3%. And then the 2.5% would be calculated on their salary. If it takes 1% for them to reach the midpoint, that's what they would get. If it takes 10% to reach the midpoint, they would get 2.5% and look forward to 3 more over the next 3 years.
All right, and another question on that then. So if I'm a current employee and I'm at my midpoint today or past it, I'm going to get the 3% pay increase because everybody gets that.
That is correct.
But I won't get the 2.5.
That is correct.
Okay. And if I was, let's just say I'm the employee that I'm almost at the midpoint, maybe I'm 2% away from the midpoint. Instead of 2.5, I'm going to get 2.
That is correct.
So that's how that all slides around. So, okay, I want to make sure we're all on the same page with that. And there's something else about that. At this moment in time, and you may not have this, at your fingertips, but given all the employees that we have, can you guesstimate approximately how many are below the midpoint?
Probably about 2/3. Probably 65 to 70% are below the midpoint. Okay. And a large number of those are at the minimum.
Okay. I know you got a lot more to go through. Any other questions for council on that?
Not questions, but can I make a comment now? Okay, I just wanted to comment about the insurance coverage, because I know we talked about that at length, and one of the the discussions against that was that no one else is doing it. And I like that we are entertaining that idea because I think that's what will set us apart because no one else is doing it. I did a little informal, non-scientific poll, and I called different employees that I knew throughout the county or if I just happened to be talking to them in general already. And I just said, if we could cover all of your insurance for you as the employee, or we could just give you $1,000, which would you rather have? Hands down, every single one said the insurance, the coverage for insurance. So I think that shows how important it is to our employees, and I think that I'm glad to see that we're entertaining that and that it has been included. So just wanted to kind of give a little voice there to tell you my informal research. Nothing is scientific up here, but I did try to poll a good bit of our employees and try to see what they felt about it. And
I believe it would be a recruitment and retention tool.
that's what the thought process was, that we can't compete with all of our neighbors, but we can do things that set us apart. And we can say, hey, look at us for this. And I'm hoping if we get it wrong, we can go back and fix things. But I think this is a way to maybe get it right. So thank y'all.
I'd just like to add, I think people need to realize a benefit is a pay raise, theoretically. It's money that stays in your pocket versus going out of your pocket. So you take what David's presented and you add insurance to it, so it's like you win 3 ways, so.
Well, and if I can add just one other quick point so people can hear it too, that when we instituted probably, gosh, what was it, 10, 11 years ago, the insurance difference that we only, when the employees were picking up 80% of their insurance instead of 100% for the county, at county picks up 80 instead of 100. At that point in time, while it's never easy to find employees, it was easier than it is today. This post-COVID world has made it much more difficult, and every sector to
And the
find
budget
employees.
was in a different place at that point. I remember when y'all discussed that, it was at, our budget was at a totally different place back then. And it just, we went from covering to the percentage because we had to, basically, to save money. We're at a point now, again, might have to flip someday, I don't know. But while we're here, thank y'all for entertaining that. I think it's worthwhile, at least to have the discussion and put it in there, so thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out.
As I go through each department, I'll pause at the end if you have any questions. Just let me know. County Council, a total of $140,000 in American Rescue Plan funds for grants to the towns for capital projects is included. As we know, Edgefield and Johnston have obligated much of their money, not all of it. Trenton has some outstanding funds. We elected to include the remaining balance of the $500,000 that council approved last year and place it back in this year's budget. Council would review the projects and, if approved, would provide up to 50% of the money from American Rescue Plan funds. We propose moving litter control funding to building and planning. $110,000 in litter funding is removed from council's budget. Council's budget for printing was increased by $1,000. Administration. The salary for the IT position approved last year was added to the administration salaries. I believe that position was approved post-budget process, so it was not included in the original salaries. Printing was increased by $2,500. Employee training funds in the amount of $17,500 were moved to professional services. Those are monies that were paid to employees to help with the transition for new employees. The automotive operating account was reduced to $500 because of historical use. Building and planning. A full-time litter control employee is added at a cost of $27,045 plus benefits. A part-time employee at 20 hours per week is also included at a cost of $15,600. Additional software at a cost of $6,000 was included, not 16. That was a typo.
I had that down to ask you, is that correct? Because I was going, where?
I think the total budget is there. This is an additional smaller piece of software. Clerk of Court. The Clerk of Court requested an increase in travel for training from $1,500 to $2,500. We recommend $2,000. An increase in memberships and dues from $500 to $1,500 was requested and is recommended. The Clerk of Court did not recommend changes for his other department, the County Archives. The Coroner. The coroner has seen an increase in the number of cases they have been involved in that require an autopsy. They have requested an increase in the professional services line item from $45,000 to $60,000, and we agree as the current year's expenditures are reaching that point now. Auto operating was reduced from $5,000 to $2,500. Equipment repairs were reduced by $500. The coroner agreed with each of these reductions. The coroner requests health insurance for his 2 part-time positions. It was explained that they must work at least 30 hours per week to be eligible for health insurance, and they are not at this point at this time. So this request is not recommended. Veterans Office, no increase or changes were requested. The Magistrate. The Magistrate asked for an increase in both the training and boarding and lodging budgets from $800 to $4,000, and we recommend $3,000 for each. Increased training is required from the new magistrate. In fact, he's in training this week. That is just a requirement of a new magistrate. Probate. Probate did not request any changes. Voters registration. Voter registration requested $20 per person supplement to poll workers, which is recommended. Again, it is hard to get people to do anything now. And an additional $6,000 for a seasonal part-time employee to establish a second early voting site. I believe we've discussed this earlier in the year. We recommend adding $11,000 for safety, security, and repairs to polling sites so they are adequate for the voters. Mobile voting machines were requested in the amount of $12,000. We request that this be included in the American Rescue Plan funds. These are lightweight machines that can easily be taken out to the vehicles and easily placed into the lap of a voter that cannot come in. The large bulky machines that we have now, they are so unwieldy to do that. So we want to serve our voting public
How
in
many
that
will
way.
that get us? How many will the 12,000 get us?
I believe the number was 12, and there was a range of 12 to 15,000. So I think if you look at the ARP list, I have 15, and here we have 12. We have not received bids on what those cost yet. We have an estimate.
David, early voting site, Sweetwater Community Center?
That is what we discussed.
Okay.
And if that works out, I think that's where we would intend to have it. Yes.
So were the poll workers not paid anything before? Is that correct?
They do receive funding, state funding, and this is a supplement. It's common for jurisdictions to do this, to attract people to do it. And it's not really a per day thing, it's a per event.
Okay.
GIS did not request any changes. The next four that I go through, you will hear that there are large reductions in their budgets. That is simply because we are consolidating those expenditures in countywide. So as you hear these, that is why. The assessor has not asked for an increase in his budget, but we recommend an increase of $1,500 for printing based on his expenses this year. We also recommend a reduction in special contracts from $22,195 to $5,000 for multi-departmental software. These funds and expenditures will be added to the countywide budget. Tax collector, we recommend a reduction in special contracts from $46,539 to $25,000 for multi-departmental software. These funds and expenditures will be added to the countywide budget. The treasurer, we recommend a reduction in special contracts from $91,000 to $5,000 for multi-departmental software. These funds and expenditures will be added to the countywide budget. And the auditor, we recommend an increase of $1,000 in the maintenance contract. We also recommend a reduction in special contracts from $22,533 to $5,000 for multi-departmental software. These funds and expenditures will be added to the countywide budget. Those reductions are for our Q Public software that the auditor, treasurer, tax collector, assessor, and to a small extent, the clerk of court, as well as the finance department, uses. Periodic bills come in from this company, and they do not clearly designate which department they go to. We know the percentage that each department should pay, but it is difficult as each bill comes in to allocate the responsibility for that bill. It makes far more sense to pay for that out of the countywide budget so that all bills are paid out of that budget. So countywide, group insurance will increase from $875,000 to $975,000 due to the proposal to cover individual premiums. It is possible that group insurance will increase more based on an increase for state insurance. And we're hearing possibly 3%. We do have some room within this current budget. We would not have to increase it 3%, because we can absorb some of that. Property and liability insurance has increased $75,000. Special contracts will increase by $90,000 and computer programs by $57,000. These two increases totaling $147,000 are mostly offset by the $142,267 reduction in the assessor, tax collector, treasurer, and auditor's budgets. Emergency management. Funding for firefighter training was added to the EMA budget in the amount of $37,000. This is the program that was approved by council in February. This is the firefighter level 1 training. They are currently doing the first responder training now that we're covering in this year's budget. We are exploring cross-training an employee to serve as an assistant to the EMA director during emergencies. The Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office is requesting 2 new deputies. We are recommending 1. There's a school resource officer in every public and charter school. The county funds 20% of 3 of these officers. The sheriff has multiple vehicles ordered in the previous fiscal year that were delayed. Bond funds will be included in this budget in the amount of $250,000 to cover both currently budgeted and late arriving vehicles that have been projected to arrive this year. These are not the only funds to purchase vehicles. General fund monies are included in the budget as well, but $250,000 of it is bond money. The upfit of all of these vehicles at an additional cost of $120,000 was previously approved to come from our funds, American Rescue Plan funds. This will be offset by a reduction in the maintenance costs for automotive equipment. The sheriff asked for increases in the training budget, and we agree. The sheriff asked for new and replacement equipment totaling $100,000. We are recommending $80,000 or 80% from American Rescue Plan funds and 20% or $20,000 from the general fund. The sheriff has asked for several other line item increases as he expands his operations to provide quality service to everyone within the county. In addition to increases, the sheriff worked with staff to identify line items that could be reduced, making it more feasible to fund a deputy, including a $10,000 reduction in overtime. We recommend a reduction of $4,000 in professional services as we now have an IT person that can assist the sheriff's office. A $10,000 decrease in equipment repairs, and a $2,000 decrease in service contracts. These are based on historical expenditures. Dispatch operations. The sheriff is requesting an additional dispatcher in his budget. We are recommending the funding of this position, $35,262 plus benefits, partially funded by a reduction in overtime. The detention center. The sheriff is requesting 2 new employees to reduce overtime as well as to train them before the new larger facility opens. We are recommending increasing staffing by $31,108 plus benefits, partially funded by a reduction in overtime. The sheriff is working to determine staffing requirements for the new facility. Animal control. Our new animal care and control facility is scheduled to open at the start of the fiscal year. To operate the facility, we will need to hire 1 full-time technician, $35,262 plus benefits, and 1 part-time technician, $18,000. Animal feed and medicines, $20,000. Furniture and fixtures for the new facility, $15,000. And non-reimbursed veterinary services, $15,000. Now, we don't believe our veterinary bill will only be $15,000, but these are non-reimbursed fees that we would not recoup from adoption fees or that Saluda would have to pay. These costs replace the $120,000 that we were paying to Aiken County for use of their facility. Revenue accounts were also established in the budget for Edgefield County resident fees, for Saluda County fees, and for adoption fees. So there will be revenue line items. There are in your budget currently. Obviously, those are predictions. We tried to be very conservative with those. County maintenance. From April through September, our maintenance employee spends almost his entire time mowing and trimming around all of our buildings, convenience centers, industrial park, and entrance signs. He also performs construction and repair tasks. We have budgeted for lawn care at the convenience centers. This item is reflected in the solid waste budget so that he can focus more time on skilled tasks and we increased part-time employee hours by 20% for his seasonal help. The recreation budget. Our recreation department consists of one full-time and one seasonal part-time employee. We propose to increase the seasonal part-time to year-round, 24 hours per week at an increase of $7,000. This will allow county recreation staff to better maintain the facilities and to have county staff present at evening events when needed. This, in my opinion, is a step towards funding a full-time position the following year. Our recreation department is growing, and again, we have one full-time employee. Road fees, roads and bridges. On January 1st of this year, we are again able to collect road fees, $30, to fund road maintenance in the county. This is a more equitable solution to funding roads. We have lost several Class A CDL drivers over the last few years due to uncompetitive pay, even as the ability to get a Class CDL has been made more difficult by the state. We propose reclassifying our heavy equipment operators to grade 14 from grade 12. This will increase starting pay from $15.68 per hour to $18.04 per hour. We propose to move one employee from grade 12 to grade 18 to establish a foreman position. In addition, we have budgeted $200,000 for a new dump truck. We know a new dump truck will cost a little more than that. We do have long-held bond funds for roads and bridges in an amount of about $20,000 to make up the rest of that. The special revenue fund is stable. Economic development. We are continuing our payment to the Economic Development Partnership, $80,000 this year. Additionally, we are continuing with our contractual agreement with Retail Strategies, with the $45,000 cost coming from American Rescue Plan funds. The Industrial Park Special Revenue Fund had a balance of $329,096 at the end of fiscal year 21-22. Emergency medical services. The EMS fund has seen a drop in its reserve balance in recent years. We need to order another ambulance, but build times are almost 3 years, so this will not be reflected in this budget. Due to increasing call volumes, we propose to purchase a quick response vehicle to run during daytime hours through American Rescue Plan funds, $50,000. This will necessitate the hiring of 2 EMTs at a cost of $70,500. We will need to transfer $238,250 from the EMS fund. The EMS fund had a balance of $346,338 at the end of fiscal year 21-22. This fund will be depleted within 2 years without an increase in revenue. Solid waste fee. The solid waste fund is relatively stable. There was a large increase last year in expenditures. There's a 6.5% increase in payments to Tri-County Solid Waste Authority from $769,000 to $819,000, primarily due to equipment cost and the poor recycling market. We are not making money from recyclables. Tri-County is not. And those materials are having to be hauled to the landfill, which adds additional cost to us. The budget includes adding an extra person to the Sweetwater Convenience Center and a 3% increase in pay for convenience center employees to $8.34 an hour. We have budgeted $9,500, as previously mentioned, for lawn care at the convenience centers under special contracts. The Solid Waste Fund had a balance of $243,222 at the end of fiscal year 21-22. Due to heavy usage of the Sweetwater Convenience Center, options such as expansion or increases in operating hours or days will need to be evaluated over the next year. Either option would likely require a future increase in the solid waste fee. Victims' Bill of Rights. The Victims' Bill of Rights Fund provides for Sheriff's Office assistance to those who are victims and their families. A portion of the fines and forfeitures are returned to the county to fund this budget. However, in recent years, the funding has not adequately supported the position. We will need to transfer $60,505 from the general fund to the Victims' Bill of Rights, just as we budgeted this current year. We also propose to move the existing employee from a grade 14 to a grade 17. This is the more appropriate fit for her salary and her responsibilities. Piedmont Technical College. Last year, we increased our payment to Piedmont Tech to $85,000. This year, we are raising our payment to $90,000. Their request was $192,154. Aiken, Bamberg, Barnwell, Edgefield Library. We recommend an increase of $4,450 based on their request. We did have a slight reduction in their maintenance cost. They have maintenance requests that we are going to tackle this year, and I would anticipate that would result in less maintenance in the coming year. On miscellaneous items, we recommend continuing to fund at the current levels the Beckman Center, $2,000, the Senior Center, $3,000, Clemson Extension, $1,000, South Carolina Association of Counties, $7,635, Upper Savannah Council of Governments, $18,307. The Burton Center has requested $20,000. We have not included this request in the budget. I have a few new items to discuss. One in particular, as council is aware, we have been party to an opioid settlement process. Part of that settlement occurred a few months ago, and we are near the end of the final settlement for the state suits, of which South Carolina is a party. Council will be asked to consider approving that settlement during the April 11th council meeting. So we had to determine how we will accept this money in this year's budget, not fully knowing the exact dollar amount, and how we can expend this money without knowing what expenditures will be approved by the Attorney General's office. So our proposal is to establish a standalone budget for the opioid settlement, much like a school resource officer budget that has revenue in, its expenditures out. To accept the grant revenue and then to be able to expend it on an approved program. We expect to receive approximately $186,000 this year in guaranteed funds. we may receive much more because there are unassigned funds that you can apply to fund, various activities. We have applied for the guaranteed funds. We have applied for the unassigned funds. We have not heard on either one. We know that we will receive the guaranteed funds. We don't know if they will approve the items that we submitted. We may have to revise that, and that's why this is a process. But the $186,000, give or take a little bit, is guaranteed funding, and I propose to place that in the revenue portion of the new budget. And then by the first reading of the budget, we should have a good idea of potential expenditures to balance that. If we receive unassigned funds as grant funds, we will have to then establish another revenue account through the treasurer's office for that. So this concludes my part of the budget presentation. Before we entertain more questions and hear from the officials, I just wanted to give a special thank you to the Finance Committee, its chair, Albert Talbert, and to Dean Campbell, to Taz Potts. Thank you to the council members for thought-provoking questions and input during this process. It has made this better. Thank you to all the elected officials and the department heads for your input and especially for your willingness to compromise. A special thank you again to Taz for all the edits that I made and for killing as few trees as possible in the process. And to Assistant Administrator Hart Clark for insightful discussions and always a willingness to share his opinion and ideas. Anyone who knows me knows that I love debate and I love to spur debate. I like that, and that helps make this process go better, and it gives you a better product. That's all I have.
All right, before I call on our department head and elected official who are here, council, is there anything initially you want to talk about since you just heard all this from the administrator, or you just want to wait? It's up to you.
I have a couple quick questions. I always have them. I'm jotting them down here. So can you just, I saw there was a lot of increase in printing, and you mentioned saving the trees. Why are we increasing when so many things seem to be going to online? I'm just kind of curious.
We just generate a lot of paper from these books.
It just
The
happens.
cost of
The nature of
printing
the beast.
materials is up.
Okay.
It's, we recycle, we save as much as we can, but
Yeah, I just saw it a couple of places, and I kept going, we keep increasing in printing. We keep it, and I just wanted to ask. So, yes, Doc.
But also, we lease our Xerox machines, so we pay a per-sheet fee for printing through Xerox, and there's a difference between black and white, color, et cetera, et cetera. So whenever we get new printers, if we had to pay for the printers, we wouldn't be able to afford to print anything. I'll put it that way. So this lease allows us to have these very nice print centers and print what we want to print. But that also means that we have to go with their fee schedules, et cetera. So
Tiffany, I asked
sometimes
that.
adjustments
You
have
asked
to
that
be
too?
made.
Asked that sitting in one of the budget meetings. In fact, it was Arlene, because I asked about the proof of deposits that gets sent out or passed out, and they use Arlene's envelopes. That's why her envelope cost is going up.
Okay.
I was just, I'm like you.
Yeah, it's just a curiosity,
Can
yeah.
maybe we go to a Chromebook or, on stuff that the council can use and officials can use instead of printing so much? Would it be cost savings to look into a computerized?
I think it.
Schools do it.
It'd be worth like.
They got rid of textbooks, so.
I agree. We do have a lot of records retention
Yeah.
requirements, so we do preserve a lot of paper as well.
I
And
think-
many of those rules are old and they don't really address the digital age.
And just as a quick side note, I mean, I'm all about let's reduce paper, and if we can do it all electronically, that'd be great. But what I have discovered, because I work for a corporation, just like a governmental facility. It's a myth to think we'll go to a paperless society. It's not gonna happen in our lifetime. We try to do everything electronically, but ultimately, there are things you have to print and you have to see and all those things. So while we are a little bit more archaic using this, just switching over to electronics, I'm not sure it would be worth the cost. We can do it, but it would help a little bit, but the other cost is other things going on in the county, not just our small stuff, if you will. But what you find out is, I think eventually we'll get close to that mark of no paper, but I don't know if 100 years from now, we'll still say that. It's amazing to me what you still have to print, but anyway.
A lot has to be printed. Also, if you're an administrative type staff, reading the computer screen for 6 or 7 hours straight kills you. It kills you. Your head will start hurting. It's a terrible thing. So sometimes things get printed just to make it easier to organize a desk and actually keep up with the work, and then that paperwork gets put back in the computer. So some of it is just an ease on the employees.
Well, I will say Arlene uses both sides of the paper.
She does.
When she prints something, she puts the pile over here, and when she wants to print something that doesn't go out, she turns it over and uses the other side. So she's doing her share.
Well, I love that. That's great. And again, I was just curious because I just kept seeing the printing guide. So just thank y'all for explaining that. And I wanted to address the Sweetwater Convenience Center, and that has been something that we've been kicking back and forth for a good while now, the expansion of, or somehow we're going to have to deal with something down there, especially if we see continued development, which we expect to continue and or increase. I know we've talked about impact and user fees before. Can that be used to address this?
Yes, user fees can be applied to capital expenditures.
Okay.
So they could be used for this.
if-
I think our first step would be to increase operational hours and or days. I spoke with Jim Dorn at the Senior Center and Jay Patterson with Tri-County, and that would probably be our first step. But that is correct. We can use user fees for capital improvements.
Okay, so we are not exploring increasing the hours at this point, though, correct?
We are having an initial discussion, so we are beginning that process.
Okay.
Yes.
And two other things, but down here, Piedmont requested a whole lot more than we're giving them. Did they say why? Or did they just throw a blanket number out at us?
They
Or just
they
loosely?
had justifications
Okay.
there. I couldn't support.
Now, I'm not saying that I could support, but I just kind of wondered if there was some, great thing they had in store for us, or some
There was
great
not a
reason.
special project. It was service to the students of the
Right.
area.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for emergency medical services, but I guess I'll just hold them until Garrett comes up, if he intends to speak.
If he doesn't, you can still ask him.
Yeah,
All right.
so,
Okay, before I open the floor to vote, anything else up here for right now? Everybody okay right now?
Fine right now.
All right, then I'm going to start with the sheriff and say, did you have any comments you needed to give us tonight, Sheriff? And if so, I'm going to need you to use the microphone. Sorry.
You got good batteries in that thing? You ready?
Thank you so much for having us together tonight. I want to tell you that going through this process with David has been an absolute pleasure. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And on top of that, David wanted to change the process a little bit, which I fully support. It's going to make a better product. It's going to have a better employee in a short time. And David was absolutely right. The first thing he said was, it's our most valuable asset. We have got to take care of our employees. And everything we've done is going to help me with retention, recruitment and retention. And we brought that out earlier, and that's absolutely true. No, we can't be competitive. We can't compete, but we can be competitive. And it's those things that we discussed is going to keep us there. And I think y'all all know me well enough to tell you, I like to get out in front of things. I like to be way early. So let me go on to next year's budget. I am worried to death about the detention facility and the growth of our inmate numbers, et cetera, of when we get there. I am studying with the state accreditation officer who is putting together our policies and procedures, what we can and cannot do, our best path forward to transition to the building, and then add as we go. Let me remind you, the jail is still under what we commonly call the COVID restriction. Sheriff Dobie actually put it in place. It was well done then, working with the magistrates and highway patrol and city police. I kind of ramped it up. That number kept easing up. So we are only holding our most dangerous prisoners at the time, those more violent crimes. Just about everything else you see, we are working closely with the judges and the other agencies that bring us prisoners to get them bonded as soon as possible. That doesn't sound right coming from a conservative Republican sheriff, I don't think, but it's just the way it is. The jail, as you know, is literally falling apart. So I'm anxious. Matter of fact, we poured 100 yards of concrete today. We are looking good out at the site. You ought to go by and take a look. The animal facility is coming along very well. Drive by and take a look. Everything David said about the animal control facility, we're guessing at some of that stuff. That's as simple as that. I agree with the guests. I think we're at the right place. The only concern that I really have is the vet fees, and I think David would agree. We don't know. We don't know what that number is, so we will go very cautiously, and we'll go slow, and we're going to walk before we can get it up and running. I intend to ease our way into that. Same way with the jail, the detention center. I'm worried that I tried to implement 2 years ago a process of bringing on 6 detention employees, and I have not been able to get it done. I've only added 1 this year. What I'm trying to tell you is next year, I'm going to be at least 5 behind 8 ball. I don't know that Edgefield County's ever brought on 5 employees at one time in 1 year. So I'm coming to the table next year. Not only, I realize I already eat half the budget. Next year I'm coming and I'm asking for at least 5. And we won't know what we will need for dispatch or road patrol next year, investigations, etc. So please plant that seed. I want to plant that seed in your head tonight through the year. And David knows I'm going to stay on him between now and then. I've got to watch every new dollar, and I know you do. Let's watch that new dollar, and please help me next go around. I've got to get caught up as we move into that new building. Just like the animal facility, I intend to walk into it. I'll get the judges on board, and we'll work together. But typically, I've seen it in every county that I know about it, and I've seen it in my career. As soon as you get a new jail and the door is open, the judges go berserk, and it is, they load that time up, and next thing they'll double your population. That's typical of a new detention facility, to double the population. The good news is we are building a first-class facility. It takes a minimum amount of employees to operate it, and as we go, again, we'll walk into it. We're not going to explode in there one night. We'll go. We'll work with the employees to get them, realize when I hire a jail employee, it's OJT, and then on to the police academy, a couple of 3 or 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and then back. So it takes me time to get that done. And of course, we have a horrible turnover in our facility. I hope to improve that. We are working. Everything we've talked about doing and everything the plan is going forward, I think it'll be a big hit with our detention facility. It'll help us recruit, it'll help us retain those employees, which I think everything will. Jason, have I left anything out? And I cannot go forward without telling you, if I didn't have Major Ramey as my chief deputy, don't know where I'd be. We work closely together on everything. He catches the simplest mistakes. He catches the biggest mistakes before I do, and I'm proud of him. Anything I've left out that you and I have discussed? We're good? Can I answer a question from you?
Sheriff, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you mentioned in the future, hopefully we could house inmates for the federal government and get money.
It's on my plate.
I mean, I didn't know what
don't-
time frame.
No, I'm not looking to jump into
Okay,
it.
okay.
And I don't mind talking about it. So our facility's big enough, shortly after we're in there, there's plenty of space that I'm thinking, and it's only a thought process at this point, that there is opportunity out there to bring federal inmates in and house them, go through the federal process, and it comes with a daily fee, and it is very lucrative. I've been to several small counties that do it, and they almost fund their personnel with it. It's that lucrative. I'm not anxious to jump into it. I want that facility up and running. I want the standards, the policies and procedures in place, and us operate it
Just want to let them know
properly.
that there is a future possibility of making money.
That's right, that's right. And it's on my plate, but it's down the road. It's not right now, but it is on my plate, and I'll continue to investigate it. And I've made some contacts in that field.
One thing for me, so let me preface it by saying this is almost like a good news, bad news thing.
Yes, sir.
So the bad news is it'll be 16-plus months probably before we're in the new law enforcement center, because you'd like to be in there today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's bad news. It's going to take that long.
That's right.
The good news is it's going to be 16 or more months.
That's right.
And gives us time to plan.
That's right. That's right.
And that's good. We can plan, and I'm glad you're planning. I'm speaking for me, but I bet council would probably agree with this. Next year, when it comes to staffing the facility, most particularly the jailers, I think we'd like to see what state requirements are, what the minimum standards are, what for our population, all the things, because, we don't want you to hire 5 and you need 10.
That's right.
And we don't want you to hire 10 if you need 5.
Absolutely. The accreditation that I have looked at, all that will be identified. And we'll have to go through an inspection before we actually open the door with the jail association, and that will give us the number that we need today. And then the policy and procedure will help us decide what we'll do going into the future. And numbers are a big part of that. And I'm in total agreement. We own the same sheet.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because you do a good job of keeping us informed and as a good partner, so we appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. And I am your partner.
You mentioned turnover. Believe me, I've been in that. You understand the tour I took, was brutal. And I've been in, of course, the jail and seen it, and I think all of you probably have, and it's nothing pretty. You mentioned the turnover. Do you think when we get in the new facility, do you think that will help, though? Is some of it due to the conditions? Is some of it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Because I know I wouldn't, there's not a person I would say, go work. I'm just sorry.
That's right.
I would not send anyone to work there.
As sheriff, there are a lot of things that can keep you awake at night, but the detention facility keeps me awake at night. Just I don't know I don't want to say this. So the majority of our jail personnel are females. In the way we're built, we're 100% manual operation. And it's simply, Ms. Talbot, you've been in jail more than anybody else on this panel. You see, you know what we have to do to bring a prisoner from the back to the front. Typically, it's a female jailer doing it. It scares me to death. It keeps me awake at night. She's back there locked behind 2 sets of doors. And then she unlocks the door, lets the prisoner out with her. And then she has to go back through those 2 sets of locked doors to get back to the front. And that's scary.
There's not enough money to pay me to do that job. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
There's
so,
just not.
so the good news, bad news, as we were saying, the good news is the entire facility now is just about automated. It's all electronic. She can control the doors from the tower, and from the time that door is open, the operator of the tower can see that prisoner to door to door to door and electronically open it and move that prisoner where he has to go with a minimum amount of risk. The risk to our employees in the jail as we operate it today is a
But
horror story.
But you do think the change in locale will help with your retention?
I do, and you know,
Okay.
Detention employees and police officers in general, you give them a new piece of equipment and they're all over it.
I know they're
That's-
very excited. You
that's
know,
right,
I've talked
that's
to many
exactly
of
right.
them, and they're
You-
just
you
so
know,
excited,
You might
know.
not give them the right raise, but if you give them a new
Right.
flashlight and a new ticket book and a new notebook, oh, they all in.
They
They're
are
all in.
excited, and I'm excited for them. But I do want to see us find, like I said, we have to think outside the box of how we recruit and retain.
That's right.
And I want, I kind of felt like that would be your answer, but I think it gives us some peace of mind knowing that we're not going to maybe not face the turnover competition type thing when we go into a new facility, because there will be that, hey,
That's right.
I'm feeling safer, I feel better here, this is a better work environment, I'm going to stay, so.
That is right.
Okay.
In Edgefield County in general, it's the better work environment.
Right.
And I think that's some of the,
Great.
that's some of the retention
Mhm.
that we are experiencing with the number of deputies that we have now. It's, again, I want to go back. I want to be competitive in pay. I know I'm going to be less. We're going to always be less than our southern and eastern neighbors. I get it. But as long as, if y'all work with me to keep me in a ballpark,
I think
Edgefield County is the
has-
better place to work. It's the better place to go to school. It's the better place to go to church. It's the better place to raise your family. And as long as I can keep selling that to our new recruits and those that we recruit from other agencies, I'm pretty comfortable going forward. I'm very proud of where we are, very proud of how we got here. Enjoy, again, I enjoy every day. And certainly enjoy working with David and Doc. They are absolute pleasure.
And as a side comment on the facility, Jason, Jody, and I went and actually toured the steel cell facility. When he says it is 100% better than what we have, that is not a joke. It is
Absolutely.
phenomenally good compared to what we have.
It's
I mean, the technology is actually really amazing.
good. Absolutely. Everything in this new facility, it just reduces our liability. It's just amazing to see the cells and how they designed them and how they put them together. How they'll bring them up and put them in. And I tell you, I'll call on you when the days that I know they're actually installing the cell. Y'all come take a look. It's quite a construction marvel.
Thank you.
Any other
Everybody good?
questions?
Chad, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's been overdue, so it's coming forward, so
Yes, sir.
that's a great thing we can look forward to. Thank you all, too.
All right, so I assume we're not hearing from anybody else from the Sheriff's Department. So then I'll ask Garrett if he wants to come up and tell us anything and then answer any questions.
I would just like to say, I would like to just give David a big thank you. He's been wonderful with this whole budget process. This year I came with some big requests for him, some very important requests. He was very willing to listen to me, ask me questions, and be open to anything that I had to recommend to him. So I'm very satisfied with what he was able to help, accomplish for EMS. Our workforce is very vital to the county. And as you know from the letter I sent you, there's a lot going on with EMS around us. And I don't want us to be in that same boat either. So I think taking the steps now, and I'm kind of like Sheriff, I like to be out way ahead of issues before and not, dealing with them when they come. So, taking care of our workforce, compensation, I'm happy to see what we're doing with that. And there's a plan for it. I think the employees, that's what they were looking for, is that they want to see that if I invest in Edgefield County, that there's opportunity for me along the way. So I'm very thankful for that. The QRV, I think, is going to be a great asset to the county. We needed that for a long time, but this is going to provide the supervisor to be available anywhere in the county for whatever needs we may have. And I hope that we can expand that further down the road, but I think it's a good start to get that going. It's going to help out with a lot of the issues we have, day to day, so that's going to be a great asset to the county. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, but I just really want to give David and Doc and all the council members that sat in for the budget meeting and stuff, so I appreciate all their help.
Can I just ask you, one of my things I wanted to ask you, since you were mentioning the QVR, will you just explain for those who don't know the difference, what that is different from an ambulance, how that will be servicing differently than the ambulance will be?
So the QRV will be staffed with the supervisor paramedic, so we have 4 of those. So this will run Monday through Sunday from 8 to 8. And then after that, they'll go back on the ambulance. But during that time, they'll be available to the crews that may need an extra hand. If we have a 4th out call, we'll be able to put a truck together to respond to that. It's really to assist the crews. If they're closer to a call, they may be the first person there. It just provides an extra person that's available to the citizens and to the ambulance crews if they need help with anything.
I'm sorry, let me ask a follow-up question to that. So, in a quick response vehicle with the supervisor and such, they, in essence, I'm assuming, unless you tell me differently, that they are almost like, or could almost be like a first responder in the sense that maybe we don't have to call out a Saluda or McCormick or Aiken.
That's correct. So they can first respond. Saluta's already, they're doing this now. And when I talked to their director, it's actually cut down on the times that they have to call us. And I actually have noticed that they don't call us as much anymore because that person can go and respond. And if they're stable, then they can stay with them until an ambulance gets there. Or if they're more critical, then, they can, myself or Mike's available, we can get an ambulance together and get that patient taken care of. So, yeah, they're more like a very highly trained first responder, but they'd be available to anybody that would need them.
One other thing I'd just like to point out, you said, David, that this fund will be depleted within 2 years without an increase. So let me just put that in basic terms. You're saying without a tax increase, this will be depleted. Is that correct?
As the revenues are coming in right now, that is correct. Now, we have had a bit of a building boom, and we'll have additional residences coming on. We did do conservative budgeting, so I don't want to be alarmist about it, but the fund is going down. We were gradually building a surplus, and now we're gradually depleting the surplus. And as Garrett was speaking, I realized there was one thing that I left out of the memo. I apologize. The Finance Committee knows this, but we have to, and I proposed increasing the grade for paramedics by 2 and EMTs by 1. We are grossly underneath every competitor, including Saluda and McCormick. We need to get their wages up, and I do have that proposal in the budget. It is reflected in the budget.
Okay.
But paramedics particularly, we are in jeopardy, as I'm sure Garrett could go on and on about that, the jeopardy we're in. This is not a large amount of money. I don't have it before me. It's about $35,000 across the board of all the EMS employees. But I wanted to mention that because I see that I neglected to put that in the budget memo.
So what I'm hearing is if we do not get creative or find some other outside the box revenue fund or funding or something, in a year to 2 years, we will have to raise taxes to cover this fund.
If not, next year at this time when I'm sitting here, then it would be the following year. we do have some ideas a little outside the box. They're not ready for prime time now.
I'm
but-
an outside the box kind of girl, you know, so I live outside that box.
But we're working on some things and, with a lot of thought and planning and a little bit of prayer, I think we'll get there.
Well, I do appreciate you being honest and going ahead. I don't like to do the ostrich with our head in the ground. I want to know, and so we can all collectively be thinking and working and knowing that no one wants to say we're increasing taxes. I don't want to be the council that does that. So I want us to try to find every other option available before we cross that bridge. So I appreciate this.
That's correct. And the county budget, the county finances are strong, but this particular special revenue fund is in jeopardy.
Thank you.
I would like to say, David and I, we talked about that, it definitely, we're gonna look into it, and 2 years from now, it may be much different, but anyway, we talked about it, so, we on the right track, yeah. We all would know, once he got figured out.
Who controls your fees that you charge?
For the fee for service, so we set those, but we're bound by Medicare and Medicaid. We have to accept their rate.
Do they give y'all a percentage raise every year to go up to?
So they've actually been decreasing the Medicare and Medicaid rates. We're currently, this summer, they're doing a ambulance cost factor study. So we were selected this year to do that, so I'll have to submit a ton of information about our costs, how much ambulance fuel, all those pertinent details. They are looking to reevaluate it, but reimbursement has been down across all areas of healthcare, not just EMS. When we set our fee, it's typically 200% over what the Medicare allowable is. So our patients that don't have insurance or that have commercial insurance, they're within what the average or market is, but when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, we can't charge them. We have to accept what they pay us. We can't balance bill.
Am I wrong, but didn't we used to have a company, do we still employ a company that goes to try to collect the fees?
So we have a company that does our billing for us, and then we do participate in debt set-off, and that is to try to collect some of those that, it basically goes out their state tax return.
Okay.
Majority of the services in the state participate in that, but it takes a long time to kind of collect that money.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. I want to say one more thing as far as our paramedics. They are our most vital asset to our county. They're the highest trained people we have. In a rural county, they really can mean the difference between life or death. And what's happened in the workforce is that a lot of other healthcare professions are snatching them up. So hospitals, doctors' offices, other services, but there's other areas in the healthcare field now where paramedics can go and work. So it's not so much worried about losing them to other services, but just other areas of healthcare. They're very vital to ERs, especially right now. They're hiring a ton of paramedics in ERs, so they're very valuable people, and I want to do everything we can to keep them here.
Anything else for Garrett?
Thank you, Garrett.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. All right. So before I move on to the next thing, nothing else from the administrator that we talked about so far then?
No, that's all.
So council, we've got three more things to do, just depends on how you want to do them. So first, I'm going to ask you in a second, is there any comments you want to make, any discussion you want to have? Now's a good time to do it. Next thing we're going to do after that is go page by page in the budget, which is a very quick run through that won't take very long. And then finally, we're either going to discuss anything else or adjourn. So that's the process that's left if you've got anything to talk about. So you got two discussion times. So I'll just ask now, before we go page by page in the budget, is there anything that we need to discuss that y'all have heard or you haven't heard or anything?
Yes, the bird center. requesting 20,000. Are we gonna consider the Bird Center?
That's up to y'all. What was the reason for 20,000?
Yeah, that's my next question.
Their letter basically said that they provide needed services for the community, and their council did not support them last year in the budget, and they were requesting that we reconsider that and support them this year.
Can you have them come to the next meeting in person, and maybe we can ask questions, or they can give us some more information, how many people they serve in this county and such things as that, instead of just a letter?
I think we could do that.
Okay. I mean, that's my request.
And to help with that, if they can send it in advance, it's always helpful. Yeah. So we can look at it before they get here. Does that help, Jackie?
Yes, sir, it did.
You have something? Feel like you want to say something, but if not, I'm good.
I'll wait.
All right.
I'll wait, I'm good.
Okay. All right, then, let's go page by page. And the reason I want to do this in the budget, just so to remind you, is when you're home studying the budget, I know sometimes you run across something, you glance at it, and you go, I don't know what that is, I need to know more about it, and you hadn't had a chance to ask, or it's something you think all of council needs to know. So here's what I'm going to do. The pages are numbered at the top right-hand corner. And just so you'll know, there's actually 140 pages in here, even though it says 146. That's because, and it's not a page one, only because I believe the administrator said to me that these are pages that we didn't include because they have zero balances. There's no account, there's nothing there.
That is correct.
Yeah, so don't be alarmed. It's just, there was nothing there. Those are things we're trying to delete from the budget, I believe, anyway, because there's zero account things. So what I'm going to do, council, is to remind you, I'll just go page by page. Your job is to stop me if there's something to talk about. I'm not going to stop until you say stop. And then we'll stop on that page.
Not.
Yeah, you don't knock, say stop.
He said stop.
My button.
All right. So, anything on page 2? Page 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? Page 7? Page 8? Page 9? Page 10? Page 11? Page 12? Page 13? Page 14? Page 15? Page 16? Page 17? Page 18? Page 19? Page 20? Page 21? Page 22? Page 23? Page 24? Page 25? Page 26? Page 27?
Yes, okay.
All right.
27.
Page
I keep
27.
seeing, you know, always at the bottom, something from the bottom said boarding and lodging. Okay. Explain, what is that, boarding and lodging?
All right, so, well, this happens to be under the auditor, on if you're asking for that, or, so I'll ask the administrator if you want to talk about board and lodging, and it occurs in more than one budget.
Yes,
She's talking about it on page 27, next to the last, but it's not just the auditor, it's others.
Yes, so boarding and lodging is hotel and meal expenses while traveling to do employee training. So there's always two lines. There's an employee training line, and then there's a boarding and lodging that separates the hotel accommodations or the meals.
Okay,
Does that get it?
that's it, that's it.
All right, nothing else on page 27? Page 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. I don't have a 54, by the way.
I don't either. I don't think,
We
hold
go
on,
from
wait a minute.
53 to 55.
55.
53, 55.
Right, but there's no
Yes.
54.
Okay, no 54.
Do you have a 54? Do you have a 54, Taz?
That would be another zero balance account.
Because I was looking at, it looks like one on 53, whatever it is here, ends, and something begins on 55, so
That's correct.
there's your explanation. All right, 55.
Just 55. It says solicitor, saluted. What, can you explain that? I saw the other night, I kind of put a check beside.
On the solicitor's budget, that budget is provided to us by the solicitor's office, and we really have little input in putting that together. The revenue comes in from them for that, and then it's expended by them. It goes through the county.
Okay. So 55, 56, 57, 58. Doesn't appear to be a 59.
I got 59.
I have 59.
Okay. I don't have 59, but I'll trust you.
There's stuff on it. Do you want to look at mine?
What's the topic?
Resource officer at STG.
Okay.
You good?
So 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69. I'm missing a 70.
I got a
I got
70.
Y'all win bingo tonight.
But it's all, well, no, it's,
He has the wrong book.
And 70 is a zero.
Oh, it's a, okay.
it's
It's a zero balance, but okay, I don't have that one, okay. So that's
I'm
70.
getting them for you over here. We're passing them down to you. Don't you worry.
We got you together.
Picking you
But
up.
then y'all not gonna have it. 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77. I don't have a 78.
I don't have a 78.
We don't have a 78 now.
That's a
That's
zero
a zero
balance?
balance sheet.
Okay.
Another zero balance, okay? 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84. I'm missing 85 and 86 for both of them, okay? So then I would go to 87.
No, 88. I don't have an 87.
I have an 87.
Wait, no, I got an 87. I have you over here. Turn too fast.
All right, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. Now, I skip a lot here. I go from 97 to 102.
That's where I go.
Those are the council zero. So council picking up with 102, 103,
Big jump. From 102 to 119.
I go to 103 and then 119.
Yes.
Okay, same thing, zero balance. Okay. 119, 120. Then we jump to 135, same thing. 136, 130, missing 137, that's the zero balance.
138.
Right. Then 139, 140, and that's it.
You have encountered our process of trying to save trees.
Yeah, there you go, just a random selection of, no, I'm just kidding.
And we will be clearing those out as we go. There are a few that we may use in the future, so we're trying to be a little cautious about clearing them too fast.
Well, and council, you know, the reason I want to make sure we do that too is because you probably like me, when I'm at home looking at this, I didn't look, is there a page 103 or
Yeah,
104?
I
I'm just
don't look
looking
at
at
page
numbers and
numbers
going through and following budget. I'm not looking at page numbers. This is the time we go, oh, there's a page number, because everything was flowing. You know, had something not flowed, I think we probably would have noticed that too. So thank you, staff, for doing that. So before I give you just a couple of final comments to set us up for first reading, is there anything else anybody wants to discuss about this budget in this workshop?
Want to thank David for all the hard work. Great job.
Did I see your hand go up? Before the candy went in?
Are you hungry? Recreation. One quick question. When it say our recreation department consists of one full-time, that is Nick, right?
That is Nick.
Nick, okay. Okay, that's all I want to make sure it was Nick.
Any other questions or comments? All right, council, so let me remind you how we will do the budget beginning first reading, second reading, and third reading. It'll be done the same way. We've been through all this detail tonight that's in the administrator's memo. So at the first reading, he's not gonna go through that memo again. He'll revise it, because I know at least the paramedic thing has to be in here. So you'll get a new budget memo next time. And I would presume we might end up getting a new budget, because some numbers may change between now and then, because invariably the state sends you information you have to change. So what you have tonight, if you get a new one in your packet, understand, get rid of this one, use the new one, because something changed that you know, is in the budget. Second, at first, second, and third reading, all I'm gonna say is, you know, okay, I've read the title, are there any questions or comments from budget from the administrator? And he's gonna tell us, well, yeah, I've got 4 changes for you that just popped up in the past 2 weeks, or the last 2 days, or whatever it may be, because those always pop up, whether it's because of us, or the state, or the feds, or whatever. So there'll be changes every budget. But my point is, he'll give us those, and then I'm just gonna ask you, do you have anything you wanna discuss? And if the answer is no, we vote on it and move on. Or if you wanna discuss 37,000 things, we'll discuss 37,000 things. You see what I'm saying? So I call it by exception only. Because we've already been through it page by page, memo, questions and answers. And of course, you can always ask the administrator stuff, you know, between now and a meeting, always. So is everybody clear on the process? It's, Jerry's the only one that's new, so you haven't really seen this part, but that's generally what we do. So that it makes it, holding this hour and a half makes our first, second, and third reading a little bit easier. Because now you've got a whole foundation now. So we're ready to now discuss it and to make changes in whatever we think we need to do. So, anything else from anybody else? All right, then there's nothing else on the agenda tonight. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Ireland made the motion and Dr. Kenyon seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And all opposed, motion passes unanimously. So we did have one vote tonight.
Yeah.
So thank you all.